Nova Arden sat in the very last row of the Helion Interstellar Defense Academy's largest lecture hall. The same seat she chose every single day. The lights were bright, the air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen, and the giant holoprojector floated in the center of the room, showing tactical maps of distant star systems. All around her, excited first-year cadets whispered about combat drills, starships, and how they would become heroes of humanity one day. No one whispered about Nova, not in a good way. At least she kept her back straight, her hands folded on the desk, and her eyes focused on the glowing graph in front of her. Every now and then, she pushed her long black hair behind her ears so it wouldn't fall into her eyes. Her expression stayed calm and ordinary. To anyone looking, she appeared like a shy girl trying to keep up, but no one noticed the way she studied. The simulation far deeper than the lesson required. She was reading the data at a speed no normal human could follow. She understood every movement of every potential threat as if she had lived through 100 battles. She could see patterns that even the most advanced combat AI failed to calculate. Of course, no one knew that. Everyone only saw the quiet girl who always sat in the back. When the instructor entered the room, the chatter stopped. Commander Rourke was a tall, stern man with silver hair and sharp eyes. Rumors said he once fought an entire pirate squadron alone, and most cadets believed every word. "All right, cadets," he said. "Today, we continue our lesson on threat recognition. I expect focus. Some of you are still performing far below Academy standards." His gaze passed over the room like a scanning beam. When it brushed past Nova, a few cadets snickered. She kept her eyes forward. Everyone already knew who he was talking about. Rian, a loud cadet with copper hair, leaned toward his friend and whispered just loud enough for others to hear. "Maybe he means our back row champion, the legendary master of falling down." Several cadets laughed under their breath. Nova heard every word, but she gave no sign. She was used to it during the first week. Nova had tripped during basic movement drills not because she was clumsy, but because she purposely slowed her reflexes to normal human levels. During marksmanship practice, she hit only half of her targets, letting her shots drift off slightly instead of landing dead center as she could easily do. And in group strategy exercises, she always remained silent, letting others talk over her. It was easier this way. She needed to stay hidden, but hiding was harder than she expected after the lesson. The cadets moved to the training hall for their daily exercises. The enormous room was filled with moving platforms, robotic dummies, target drones, and glowing lines marking safe zones. Nova stepped inside and headed straight for her assigned group, hoping to blend into the background. But as always, she failed. "Well, well," said Kira, a tall girl with bright blue hair tied into a strict ponytail. "Look who finally showed up. Try not to ruin today's session too, Nova." Nova lowered her eyes slightly. "I'll do my best." Kira rolled her eyes. "That's what you said yesterday. And the day before? And the day before that?" Rian grinned. "Maybe she's actually a genius pretending to be useless. You know, like in those old holodramas?" The group laughed. Only Nova remained still. She could tell jokes didn't bother her anymore. What truly bothered her was the memory of what she once was and what she was trying so hard not to be again. Before she entered the academy, she held a different name, a name people whispered with awe and fear, a name that carried responsibility heavier than any. Starship Hull, Sentinel Prime, the greatest warrior humanity ever produced. A protector who stood alone against enemies that were supposed to wipe out all life. Someone who died officially during the last Great War. But Nova Arden was not dead. She simply wanted a normal life, one where she could learn, breathe, exist without always being ready to fight. That dream seemed far away. "Cadets," Commander Rourke's voice boomed across the hall. "Today's drill is teamwork, evasion, and survival. You will complete the simulation with your squad. Speed and coordination are most important." He checked his tablet. Squad 7 Rian, Kira, Mara, and Nova Arden. Rian groaned loudly. "Great, we're doomed." Nova folded her hands together, reminding herself to stay calm. The simulation began with bright lights flashing across the hall. Holographic barriers rose from the floor, shifting like a maze. Robotic drones appeared, hovering and scanning for movement. Everyone stick together, Kira commanded. Don't slow us down. Especially you, Nova. Nova nodded. Understood. Squad moved quickly through the maze. Rian took the front, shouting directions, while Kira and Mara stayed close behind. Nova stayed at the back, her steps slow and small. The drones responded to movement. Firing harmless stun pulses at any cadet who failed to dodge, Rian sprinted forward. Come on, move faster! Kira followed. Nova, keep up. Nova walked steadily, letting the drones lock onto her. She could dodge easily, her reflexes were far above human limits, but she let the pulses hit. Nearby walls to make it look like she barely escaped. The squad reached the bend in the maze. But Rian made a wrong turn. This way, he shouted. Mara hesitated. Are you sure? Rian waved at her impatiently. Yes. Just go. They followed him into a dead end. A cluster of drones descended, their lights glowing red. Kira cursed, Rian panicked, and Mara raised her arms in confusion. Nova saw the perfect escape, route 3 meters up between two shifting walls. She could lift all 3 cadets and leap out in seconds. But she didn't. Kira glared at her. Why didn't you warn us? Nova lowered her head. I didn't want to interrupt, Rian groaned. Of course you didn't. The simulation ended with a loud buzz. The drones vanished. The maze dissolved. And Commander Rourke walked over with disappointment in his eyes. Squad 7, he said. Your cooperation was poor. Your timing was slow. And your awareness was lacking. His gaze settled on Nova. Cadet Arden, you must try harder. Nova bowed her head. Yes, sir. The others sighed in frustration. As they walked away, Nova stayed behind, staring at the spot where the drones had appeared. If she had acted like herself, her real self, the drill would have ended perfectly. But she could not afford perfection. After training, she returned to her dorm room, small, simple space with a narrow bed, a desk, and a window showing the academy courtyard. She sat on her bed and took a deep breath. She felt tired. Pretending to be normal was harder than fighting any battle. As she closed her eyes, she sensed movement outside. It was faint, quiet, almost hidden too precise to be a student walking by. She opened her eyes again. Someone was watching her, Nova. Stood and approached the window slowly. The courtyard looked empty, but she knew what she felt. Her instincts were sharper than sensors, sharper than machines. She scanned the shadows. Nothing. But she still felt it. A presence. A threat. No, not a threat. Not yet. But something searching. Hunting. Reaching. A voice echoed in her memory. The voice of the commander who once trusted her with the fate of humanity. Sentinel Prime, if the old enemy ever returns. You must be ready. Nova clenched her fists. She didn't want to be ready. She wanted peace. She wanted to be Nova Arden, the quiet girl in the back row, but the universe seemed unwilling to let her stay hidden. The next morning, she arrived early for class. The hall was quiet, still, and dimly lit. She sat in her usual seat. She liked this time of day when no one was laughing at her or whispering her name. But soon, footsteps echoed down the hall. Instructor Vale entered. He was one of the academy's youngest instructors. Calm, thoughtful, and always observing. Many cadets admired him. Nova avoided looking at him when possible. This time, however, he paused. Cadet Arden, he said softly. You're early. Nova nodded. I wanted to review the material. Vale studied her for a moment. Unlike the others, his gaze felt sharp, too sharp, as if he saw something more than a quiet, clumsy cadet. I reviewed your past performance records, he said. Nova's heart tightened. I noticed something interesting. She kept her voice steady. What did you notice? Vale did not answer right away. Instead, he looked at the holoprojector. During yesterday's drone incident in the hallway, you moved before the malfunction alert sounded. Almost as if you predicted it. Nova felt a chill. I was just lucky, she said quietly. Vale smiled slightly, but his eyes did not soften. Luck is a rare thing to rely on. Before Nova could respond, other cadets entered the hall, filling the room with noise and energy. Vale stepped away, but his look stayed with her. He knew something. Not everything, but enough to be dangerous in the presence she sensed last night. It was still out there, watching, waiting as the class began and the lights brightened. Nova stared at the glowing map on the screen. A star system flashed red dot. Something was coming, something she had hoped never to face again. Nova, Arden once, Sentinel. Prime sat quietly in the back row, but her time hidden in plain sight was running out. Nova Arden woke up before dawn, her eyes opening the moment the Academy's soft alarm hummed through the dorm halls. She sat on her bed for a moment, letting her breathing steady. The air felt heavy today, heavier than usual, as if something in the atmosphere pressed against her lungs. She brushed a hand across her face and exhaled slowly. Another day pretending to be normal, she stood, changed into her training uniform, and stepped outside. The hallway was quiet and empty, the lights dimmed to a soft blue. Perfect for staying unnoticed. But Nova did not feel unnoticed. The strange presence from the night before still lingered. She felt it like a faint whisper at the edge of her senses, like a shadow following her just out of sight. It made her skin tighten and her instincts sharpen. Every part of her body warned her that danger was approaching, but she forced her steps to stay slow and ordinary. When she reached the training arena for the morning warm-up, she was the first there. She stretched carefully, counting each breath. She practiced a few basic movements, slow, easy, human. Nothing that would reveal who she truly was, but her mind refused to stay calm. She kept thinking. It's about Instructor Vale, his questions, his eyes, his suspicion. He was smart. Too smart. She wished he would look away like everyone else. Soon, other cadets began entering the arena. Rian arrived first, yawning loudly. Ugh, mornings. I swear the Academy hates us. Kira followed him, already looking annoyed. No, the Academy hates laziness. You just happen to be lazy. And Kira's eyes landed on Nova, and her expression shifted. Oh, she's early again. Tane snorted, probably practicing how not to fall on her face. Nova said nothing. She focused on the ground, her movements smooth and controlled. Instructor Vale walked in shortly after, holding a datapad as usual. The cadets gathered quickly, forming neat rows. Cadets, he said in a calm voice, today we move to the assessment trials. A wave of whispers spread instantly across the room. The assessment trials were important, so important that even the loudest cadets suddenly straightened. These trials judged their progress, ranked their performance, and determined if they were ready for advanced training. More importantly, they exposed weaknesses. Nova kept her face calm, but her heartbeat changed for a moment. She had hoped the trials would come later. She was still learning how to hide her true abilities perfectly. Vale continued. There will be 3 parts today: squad tactics, personal reflex tests, and combat simulation. I expect everyone to give their best effort. His eyes lingered on Nova briefly. Everyone, he repeated. The trials began with squad tactics. Each squad had to move through a virtual battlefield with shifting terrain, traps, and enemy projections. The goal: reach the extraction point without losing team members. Nova was assigned again to Squad 7. Rian groaned loudly. Are you serious? Why her again? Kira crossed her arms. We're going to fail. We all know it. Mara tried to sound positive. It's fine. Maybe we'll get lucky this time. Nova lowered her head slightly. I'll do what I can. The simulation started. Holographic enemies appeared, instantly tall shapes with glowing armor, firing energy blasts. Rian shouted, Go left! Kira disagreed. No, right. Right is safer. Mara hesitated. We need a plan. Nova saw the correct path clearly. She could read enemy movements like words on a page. 1 shift left would trap them. 1 shift right would put them in crossfire. The real safe route was straight duck behind the broken wall and wait 3 seconds before rushing the next cover. But she stayed silent. The squad ran left. Immediately, 3 holographic enemies blocked their path. Kira shouted, "Run back!" They ran back, only to be met by more enemies. Mara panicked. "We're boxed in." Rian glared at Nova. "Say something. Do something." Nova hesitated. "Maybe we should have stun blast hit her chest." Cutting her off, the simulation ended a second later. Squad 7 was eliminated. Commander Rourke shook his head from the observation deck. "Your coordination is poor, and your communication worse. You must learn to trust each other." Kira shot Nova a sharp look. "Trust her? She barely speaks." Nova looked away. Next came the personal reflex tests. Each cadet stepped into a ring of drones that fired stun pulses in random patterns. The cadet had to dodge as many as possible. Cadets usually dodged 5 or 6. Rian dodged 7 and celebrated like he had won a war. Kira managed 9. Though she looked annoyed, it wasn't more. When Nova stepped into the ring, she felt the drones were to life around her. They moved fast, calculating angles and speeds she could avoid every single one. She could close her eyes and still avoid every single one, but she moved slowly, carefully. She let 2 shots graze her arm so it would. It seemed like she was trying hard, but still barely. Managing, she ended with 8. Dodges, the cadets stared. Rian whispered, "Wait, she beat me?" Kira frowned. "No way. That must have been luck." Nova stepped out quietly, pretending to be out of breath. Vale watched her closely again, his eyes unreadable. The final trial was the combat simulation. Cadets fought against a single drone, designed to mimic an enemy soldier. The drone adapted to their fighting style, making every match unique. Rian rushed in first. He attacked too fast, got sloppy, was taken down within 30 seconds. Kira lasted longer, almost a full minute before. The drone swept her legs and pinned her. When Nova entered the ring, the drone scanned her and locked onto its starting sequence. She took a slow breath. She didn't like fighting. Not anymore. The drone lunged. Nova dodged at the last second, moving just fast enough to look believable. She blocked its next attack, using the simplest form she knew. She stepped back and let it corner her before slipping out to the side. The cadets watched with wide eyes. She was moving gracefully. Gracefully, Nova let the drone hit her shoulder, so the match wouldn't last too long. Then she pretended to lose her balance and fell to the ground. The drone moved in for the final tap. Simulation ended. The cadets burst into confused chatter. She lasted longer than Rian, and almost as long as Kira. That can't be right. She's weak. Nova walked out quietly, keeping her eyes low. Vale stepped forward, addressing the room. "Performance results will be posted tomorrow. For now, you are dismissed." But he called one name before Nova could escape. "Cadet Arden. Stay for a moment." Her stomach tightened. The room emptied except for Vale and Nova. The lights dimmed to a softer glow. Vale tapped his datapad. "You improved today," he said. Nova nodded. "I tried. That's what concerns me." She froze. Vale stepped closer, his tone gentle but firm. "Your reflexes in the simulation, your movements, they don't match your previous performance." "Not even close," Nova struggled to answer. "I've been practicing." Practicing doesn't explain predicting the drone malfunction yesterday, or reacting before it happened. Nova tensed. Vale watched her carefully. "You're holding back. I don't know why, but I can see it."
Ow.
Nova's heart pounded faster. I don't understand. I'm not accusing you," Vale said calmly. "But I am asking you to be honest." Nova swallowed hard. Her throat felt dry. "I'm just trying to do my best," she whispered. Vale didn't argue, but he didn't believe her either. She could see it in his eyes. "Get some rest," he finally said. "Tomorrow will be difficult." Nova left quickly, her steps faster than usual. She hurried down the quiet hallway, her chest tight with fear. He knows something, not her name, not her past, but something. She returned to her dorm room, locked the door, and sat on her bed. She hugged her legs to her chest, trying to slow her breathing. But the presence grew stronger. She felt it near the courtyard. Again, watching, studying. Searching, Nova stood and approached the window. The night sky looked peaceful, scattered with stars. The academy garden swayed gently in the artificial breeze, but something moved in the corner. A shadow that didn't belong. Nova's eyes narrowed. Her instinct sharpened. That was no human shadow. She whispered to herself, voice trembling. It's starting again. For years she had hoped she could disappear, live quietly, never fight again. But whatever was out there, it had found her and Nova Arden, once known as Sentinel. Prime could feel the universe calling her back into the war she had tried so hard to leave behind. Night settled over the Hylian Interstellar Defense Academy like a quiet blanket, but Nova Arden felt no peace. She sat on the edge of her bed, her hands clasped tightly together, her eyes staring at the dim lights outside her window. The shadow she had seen earlier still bothered her. It wasn't her imagination. She knew what she sensed. She had spent years hiding from the past, but the past never stopped hunting. Nova stood and paced the room slowly. Her steps were silent, controlled. A normal cadet would be afraid or confused, but Nova was something else, something far older, far stronger. She took a deep breath and forced the tension out of her muscles. She had to stay calm. Panic would only make her lose control, but the academy was no longer safe. The next morning, Nova arrived early for class again. She walked quietly, avoiding eye contact with other cadets. The halls were filled with chatter about yesterday's assessment trials. I bet Kira gets top score again. Did you see Rion trying to fight the drone? He got knocked out instantly. And what about Nova? She did. Weirdly okay. Nova lowered her gaze. Attention was the last thing she wanted. She hoped the results would show her as average or below average, anything that kept people away from her true identity. When she entered the lecture hall, she felt a presence behind her. She turned slightly and saw Instructor Vale walking in, his eyes landing on her for a moment. She quickly looked away, pretending to focus on her datapad. Vale didn't say anything, but his silence was heavy. Other cadets filled the room, chatting loudly. Rion waved a hand as he slid into his seat. "Morning, failure squad?" he called cheerfully. Kira sighed. "Don't start. I'm too tired for your nonsense." Out. When they spotted Nova, they fell silent. It wasn't a friendly silence either. Rion leaned forward, whispering loudly, "Think she'd trip during today's drills?" Nova kept her expression calm, though every whisper pricked at her like tiny needles. She had endured far worse in her life. This was nothing. Still, part of her wished she could disappear. Commander Ruark entered the room, and the cadets sat straighter. He held a tablet displaying the results of the assessment trials. "Cadets," he began. "Yesterday's performance showed strengths and weaknesses." A nervous wave spread across the room. Rourke continued reading, listing results from each squad and each cadet. When he reached Squad 7, everyone turned to look. Mara, satisfactory. Kira, strong performance. Rian, Rian groaned, and Nova Arden. Rourke paused. Nova's heart tightened. Showed unexpected improvement. The room erupted with whispers. Rian stared. Improvement. Seriously? Kira frowned. She's been pretending all this time. Nova shook her head quickly. No, I'm just trying harder. But her words didn't matter. The cadets already made up their minds. Commander Rourke lifted his hand to quiet the voices. In addition, Cadet Arden's reflex scores place her above average. A cold silence followed. Nova. I kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Rourke ended the discussion and moved on with the lesson. Nova tried to focus, but her mind wandered. Being above average was dangerous. It made her visible. She needed to be invisible. When class ended, she left quickly, hoping to escape before anyone stopped her. But Vale stepped in front of her near the door. Cadet Arden, walk with me. Her pulse quickened. Yes, sir. They stepped into the quiet hallway. Vale walked slowly, giving her time to adjust. His voice was soft but firm. You're troubled. Nova hesitated. Just nervous about the next trials. No, he said calmly. It's something else. Nova's jaw tightened. I don't know what you mean. Vale studied her closely. You are not what you pretend to be. Nova froze. Her heart stopped for a moment. Her breathing halted. Vale continued. I don't know your story, but I know when someone is hiding skill. You move like someone who has been trained far beyond normal academy standards. Nova shook her head quickly. You're wrong. No, Vale said gently. I'm not. Nova felt the walls closing in. She needed to say something, anything, to make him stop looking at her that way. I practiced a lot before joining, she said weakly. Vale raised an eyebrow. Where did you practice? Who taught you? Nova's breath caught. She had no easy answer. He stepped back slightly, giving her space. I am not your enemy, Nova, but I will find out the truth eventually. For now, I need you to trust me. Nova said nothing. She walked away as fast as she could without running. Vale didn't stop her. She reached the courtyard, her chest tight with worry. She leaned against a wall and took several deep breaths. She couldn't let anyone discover who she truly was. If they did, everything would fall apart. The day continued with more drills and lessons, but Nova barely focused. The presence she sensed the night before grew stronger throughout the day. It followed her like a cold wind touching the back of her neck. After lunch, cadets gathered for their evening training session. Nova joined her squad quietly. Rian and Kira stood on the far side, whispering. Mara approached Nova slowly. Are you okay? You seem distracted. Nova forced a small smile. Just tired. Mara hesitated, then nodded. If you need help with anything, let me know. Nova was surprised by the kindness. She wasn't used to it. Before she could reply, an alarm echoed through the training arena. A red light flashed. All cadets froze. Commander Rourke's voice thundered across the speakers. Unscheduled drone malfunction detected. All cadets stay in place. A panel on the wall sparked suddenly. A drone emerged from the shadows, damaged, glitching, moving in a jerky, unnatural way. Its lights flickered violently. Kira stepped back. What's wrong with it? Rian panicked. It's going to shoot us. The drone jerked its head toward the nearest cadets. Its targeting lights glowed red. Nova stepped forward before she could stop herself. Kira grabbed her arm. What are you doing? Nova's voice came out steady. Stay back. The drone fired. Cadets screamed. Nova moved. She didn't think. She didn't plan. Her body reacted with instinct, older than anyone in the academy understood. In less than a second, she pushed Kira aside, rolled to the ground, and kicked upward, striking the drone's central panel with perfect precision. The blow cracked its casing. The drone staggered back, sparks flying. Nova grabbed a fallen training pole from the ground and spun it around. Her movements fluid and deadly. She leaped forward and struck the drone twice, once in the sensor, once in the support joint. The drone collapsed. Silence filled the arena. Dozens of cadets stared. Nova lowered the pole slowly, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Rian stepped forward, eyes wide. What? What was that? Kira looked pale. She moved like, Mara whispered. Not a normal cadet. Nova dropped the pole. Her hands shook. She turned around and found Instructor Vale standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. His eyes locked onto hers with sharp, Recognition. He had seen everything. Nova's heart pounded. Her secret, her real self, was slipping. That night, Nova sat alone on her bed again, hugging her knees to her chest. She had tried so hard to stay hidden, to be normal, to avoid becoming the warrior she once was. But the world wouldn't let her. She felt the presence outside again, stronger than ever. It crawled along the walls like a cold whisper. Someone or something had come for her. A faint tapping sound echoed against her window. Nova froze. She stood slowly and approached the window with careful steps. Her breath fogged the glass slightly as she leaned closer, and she saw it. A tall figure wrapped in dark armor stood at the edge of the courtyard, half hidden in shadows. Its glowing eyes stared directly at her. Window, not human, not friendly, a figure she remembered from the war. Her blood ran cold. The old enemy had found her. They knew she was alive. Nova backed away from the window slowly. Her heart beat loud in her ears. She was no longer safe, and as the shadowy figure vanished into the darkness, Nova realized something terrifying. The academy wasn't ready for what was coming, and soon. Neither was she. Nova walked through the silent hallway of the academy long after most cadets had gone back to their dorms. The lights above her flickered softly, casting long shadows on the polished floor. She moved quietly, hoping not to attract attention. After everything that had happened, she wanted nothing more than to stay hidden. But life at the academy was changing fast, and she could feel the pressure of it. Every step she took, everyone had seen what she did during the dangerous event with the security system. They saw her move faster than any normal cadet. They saw her strength, her precision, her calm reaction when others panicked. She tried to tell herself that maybe they would forget it. Maybe they would think it was just luck. But she already knew that nothing would ever be the same. Cadets stared at her when she walked into class. Some whispered. Some avoided her completely. A few looked at her with wide eyes full of fear. And some, surprisingly, looked at her with admiration. No matter what expression she saw, it made her uncomfortable. She never wanted attention. She never wanted praise. She never wanted fear. Nova kept reminding herself why she hid her true identity. It was the only way to protect humans from the burden of expecting too much from one person. She wanted to live quietly, even if only for a short time. But now she wondered if that quiet life was slipping away. Instructor Vale watched her closely, though he tried not to show it. He always stood at the back of the training room, arms crossed, eyes calm but sharp. He seemed to see through everything and everyone. Nova noticed how he looked at her not with suspicion, not with fear, but with a strange understanding, maybe even recognition. She did not know how much he knew. She did not know what he suspected. But she knew he would not stop watching her. One evening, Nova stayed late to review training footage. She sat alone in the observation room, focusing on the screen as it replayed the moment she saved the trapped cadets. She watched herself move like a shadow, fast and quiet. She watched herself dismantle the security drones. She watched herself break rules she promised never to break again. She sighed softly and closed her eyes. She wondered if she made a mistake. Maybe hiding herself had been foolish. Maybe she should have disappeared completely after the war. She felt a presence behind her before she heard the door open. Nova turned her head slightly. Instructor Vale stood in the doorway. "I knew you would be here," he said calmly. Nova straightened, but did not speak. She waited. He stepped into the room and glanced at the paused footage on the screen. "That move you used. I have only seen it once before." He looked at her with steady eyes. "And the person who used it was someone the world believed to be gone." Nova felt her heart tighten, but she stayed silent. Vale continued. "You do not have to tell me your secret. But I need you to understand something. The academy is not a safe place for someone hiding so much power. People fear what they cannot understand. And those who fear you may try to expose you. Or worse, use you." Nova lowered her gaze. "I know," she whispered. "That is why I stayed quiet. I did not want anyone to see who I was." "But they did," he replied softly. She nodded and stood. "I cannot change what happened. I can only keep going and hope they stop looking." Vale stepped closer. I do not think you understand what is coming. The threat outside our borders is real. I have seen the reports. Something ancient is waking up in the dark. Something that knows your name. Nova froze. Vale watched her carefully. You are connected to this, aren't you? Nova clenched her fists. I cannot tell you everything. Not yet. But you are right. The enemy is returning. She looked at the dim lights overhead, and they are coming for me. Vale nodded slowly. Then we need to prepare. Nova shook her head quickly. No, you need to keep the cadets safe. This is my fight, not theirs. Cannot do it alone, Vale replied firmly. Nova looked at him with calm determination. I have done it alone before. Vale held her gaze but did not argue further. Then at least let me help you stay hidden as long as possible. Nova did not answer. She simply walked past him and out of the room. The next morning, academy life returned to its busy rhythm. Cadets rushed through the halls, preparing for their next combat drills. Nova tried to blend into the noise, but whispers still followed her. There she is. Look, that's her. She took down those drones like it was nothing. Maybe she's not human. Nova kept her head down and continued walking. Her squad members watched her with uneasy faces. Kai, who had once mocked her the most, now avoided her eyes. Rena gave her a small smile, trying to be supportive. But even she seemed unsure. Later in the day, the cadets gathered for a large-scale outdoor simulation. The sky above the academy training field was clear and bright. Holographic walls shimmered around the battlefield, forming a complex maze. The simulation was supposed to test teamwork and strategic thinking. Nova hoped to stay in the background and do only the bare minimum, but things rarely went as planned as the simulation began. Nova stayed at the back of her squad. Other cadets moved ahead, calling out strategies and scanning their surroundings. Nova watched everything quietly, tracking movements like she always did. Suddenly, the ground under them vibrated. The holographic walls glitched. The lights flickered. The instructors shouted for all cadets to stay alert. Then something broke through the far barrier. A tall, dark figure stepped onto the training field. Its body was covered in strange armor. Its eyes glowed faintly. It moved in a slow, unnatural way, scanning the cadets as if searching for someone. Vale's voice boomed through the speakers. All cadets, fall back. This is not part of the simulation. Cadets panicked and ran, but Nova stood still. She recognized the creature instantly. It was an infiltrator from the ancient enemy she once fought. She thought they were gone forever. She thought she had destroyed every last trace of them, but she was wrong. The creature turned its head toward her. Nova took a shaky breath. No, not here. Not in front of them, as the creature lunged. Without thinking, Nova moved. She dashed forward, faster than any cadet could follow. She blocked the creature's strike, twisted its arm, and forced it to the ground. The impact echoed across the field. Gasps rose everywhere. The creature rose again, hissing in a strange language. Nova met its attack with calm precision. Every movement she used belonged to Sentinel Prime, the warrior she once was, the warrior she swore to hide. In seconds, she defeated the infiltrator. The creature collapsed, its armor fading into dust. Silence filled the field. Cadets stared at her with wide eyes, unable to process what they saw. Some backed away. Some looked amazed. Some looked terrified. Rena whispered, Nova. What are you? Nova stood frozen. She looked around and saw dozens of eyes fixed on her. Eyes full of fear, confusion, and awe. She knew then that the secret she worked so hard to protect could not stay hidden anymore. Vale approached, its expression serious but calm. Nova, he said quietly, it is time to stop running from who you are. Nova took a slow breath. She felt the weight of every stare, every question, and she knew the enemy would not stop here. She lifted her head and looked at the sky. Far above, on the atmosphere, she sensed something. A presence, a fleet, a darkness slowly approaching. The ancient war was returning, and this time, she would not be able to fight it alone. Nova stood at the center of the training field long after everyone else had been ordered inside. The wind brushed against her hair, carrying the faint scent of metal and dust left behind by the fallen infiltrator. The sky above the academy looked calm, but Nova knew that behind that peaceful blue, something ancient and dark was watching. She closed her eyes and listened, not with her ears, but with the deeper sense she had carried since the war. She felt a pulse in the distance, like a slow heartbeat echoing through space. The enemy was coming, and this time they were not sending one infiltrator. They were preparing for something far larger. She opened her eyes to the quiet field around her. Her secret was broken. Every cadet had seen her strength. Every instructor had witnessed what she tried to hide. She could no longer pretend to be the clumsy girl in the back row. Footsteps sounded behind her. Nova turned to see Rena walking toward her, hesitant but determined. "Nova," Rena said softly. "Everyone is talking. They don't know what to think." Nova stayed silent. Rena stepped closer. "I don't care what they say. You saved us. Twice. You saved all of us." Nova looked down at the ground. "It won't matter. Once they know the truth, they will fear me." Rena shook her head. "Maybe, but fear is not the only thing people feel. Some of us—" She hesitated. "Some of us want to understand." Nova felt a small warmth in her chest at the words. She wished things were that simple. But she knew fear often drowned out kindness. Before she could answer, the academy alarms blared. A harsh red light flashed across the sky. The loudspeakers roared with a warning that sent chills through every building. "Unidentified fleet detected. All cadets report to emergency stations." "Repeat. Unidentified fleet detected." Nova and Rena exchanged a look. Nova's face tightened with worry. "It's them," she whispered. Inside the academy, cadets ran in every direction. Some tried to remain calm, while others panicked. Officers shouted orders. Screens showed dots approaching from beyond the moon, hundreds of them. Instructor Vale found Nova near the command room. He looked tense, but focused. "So it begins," he said quietly. Nova nodded. "They've been waiting for the right moment. They want me, but they won't stop with me. They will destroy everything in their path." Vale glanced at the nervous cadets filling the hallways. "Then we stand together. For humanity. For the academy." Nova stepped forward. "Let me go out there alone. I can face them. I've done it before." Vale shook his head sharply. "This is not the past. And you are not alone anymore." Nova stared at him, trying to understand his determination. He placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "You inspired them," Vale said. "They saw you fight. They know you are something extraordinary. But they also saw your courage. And courage is something humans understand." Nova looked through the window at the approaching fleet. Fear twisted inside her, not for herself, but for the people. She had tried so hard to distance from her old life. The academy lights flickered as energy shields activated. The ground buzzed beneath their feet. Vale took a breath. "Come with me." He led her to the main assembly area, where hundreds of cadets stood waiting. Their faces were filled with fear, confusion, and hope, all mixed together. The room fell silent when Nova entered. Whispers spread through the crowd. "That's her. She fought that thing. Is she really human?" Nova swallowed. She had never wanted to stand before a crowd, but now all eyes were on her. Vale stepped aside, leaving her in front. Nova took a moment to breathe. She raised her head. "You all saw what happened today?" she began, voice steady. "And you saw what I can do. I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted to stay hidden because I didn't want to bring danger here." The cadets listened silently, the enemy coming toward us. "They are from a war long before any of you joined this academy. A war most of you have never heard about. I fought in that war. I was a soldier, a guardian, and I thought it was over." She looked at the bright screens, showing the fleet getting closer. "I was wrong." The room shifted uneasily. "But listen to me," Nova continued. "The enemy thinks humanity is weak. They think we depend on legends or powerful warriors. They think we cannot stand together." Her expression hardened. "They are wrong." A few cadets straightened, listening more intently. "You don't need to be like me," Nova said. You don't need to fight the way I fight. You just need to fight together. If you trust each other, if you stand as one, humanity will not fall." A quiet pride formed on Vale's face. Rena smiled softly, encouraged. Nova lifted her chin. "I will fight beside you, not above you, not alone." "Beside you?" Spark lit in the room. The fear did not vanish completely, but something stronger grew in its place. "Hope." Vale stepped forward again. "Prepare for battle. Defensive teams to shield stations. Combat teams to the front lines." The academy burst into action. Outside, the enemy fleet entered the atmosphere. Dark ships shaped like twisted metal glided through the sky, releasing smaller drones that rained down like sparks. The academy shields shook violently as the first wave struck. Nova ran with the frontline squad. Cadets armed themselves with rifles, electrified batons, and portable shields. The battlefield lit up as enemy drones crashed into the ground, unfolding into insect-like machines. "Spread out," Rena shouted. "Cover the left flank." Nova moved faster than the others, intercepting a drone that aimed for Kai. She sliced through it with a single precise strike. Kai stared at her breathlessly. "Thanks again. Stay focused," Nova replied. Explosions shook the courtyard. The sky filled with streaks of light as enemy ships fired energy blasts. Cadets ducked behind barriers, firing back. Nova jumped onto a broken wall and looked toward the largest ship above. She could sense the presence she knew so well, the commander of the enemy forces. Her old enemy, Vale shouted from behind her. "Nova, don't go alone." But Nova was already running forward. She leaped onto a landing drone, using it to launch herself upward. Energy blasts shot past her as she climbed higher and higher. She landed on the wing of a descending enemy ship. Grabbing onto the metal surface, she pulled herself toward the top. The hatch opened. The commander stepped out tall, armored, eyes glowing with ancient hatred. "So the lost warrior lives," it hissed. Nova stood firm, and she will end this today. The commander attacked with a blade of dark energy. Nova met it with her bare hands, her strength pushing against the blow. Sparks erupted. The ship trembled beneath them below. The cadets watched in awe as Nova fought the enemy leader in midair. The commander struck again, faster, stronger. Nova dodged, countered, and forced the enemy back. She remembered every technique she had learned as Sentinel Prime. But this time, she fought not for glory. She fought for them, for humans, for the academy. The enemy commander lunged. Nova slid under the strike, grabbed its arm, and slammed it onto the ship's hull. Cracks spread across the armor in one final motion. She gathered her strength and delivered a powerful strike to its core. The commander let out a sharp cry as its armor shattered. The ship lost balance, spiraling downward. Nova jumped off before it crashed into the ground below. Cadets scattered as the explosion lit the battlefield. When the smoke cleared, Nova stood at the center, breathing hard but still on her feet. The enemy drones halted. The remaining ships retreated, pulling back into the sky. Cheers erupted across the academy. Rena ran toward Nova. "You did it." Vale approached, smiling with pride. "No, we did it. All of us." Nova looked around at the cadets, brave, determined, united. For the first time in a long time, she felt something she thought she had lost: a home. The sky slowly cleared as the enemy fleet vanished. The academy stood strong, damaged, but alive. Nova took a deep breath. The war was not over. She knew the enemy would return. But now, she no longer carried the burden alone. She had people beside her, people worth fighting for. And she would protect them always.